All right, sixth grade, welcome to our last review before we take the quiz. The quiz will be next week, but this is the last thing we're doing this week. So, review number 3 is going to be about nonfiction forms and point of view. Now remember, to do this review, go to the assignment called Study Guide in Google Classroom, open up the Google Doc that's attached to it called 6th Reading Study Guide, and as we go, type in your answers to the study guide's questions. Look for this book icon as I go through these PowerPoints. Information by that icon goes into the study guide. All right, let's begin. Nonfiction forms. So, the form of a piece of nonfiction is the end product. That's kind of a good way to describe what I mean by this. So, for example, an autobiography. That's one form that a piece of nonfiction can take. Essays are another form, and speeches are the last form. Well, at least the last form we'll be talking about today. So go ahead and answer. I believe these are the answers to number 1 under the nonfiction forms section in your study guide. All right, let's talk a little bit more about each of these final products that nonfiction can come in the form of. So we got autobiographies to begin. Autobiography is a big word, but if we split it up, it's a little bit easier to make sense of. Auto is a prefix that means self. Biography is a root word that can exist on its own, and it means a piece of nonfiction about somebody's life. So, if you add this prefix to this root word, you get a piece of nonfiction about the author's own life, autobiography. If you write a story about your about your whole life, that counts as an autobiography because you are the one writing it about your life. If your best friend writes your life story, that's just a biography because they're writing it about someone who's not them. Okay, go ahead and just write this part down in your study guide. Let's talk about essays. Essays are pretty simple. An essay is a short work about one single subject. Now, really quick, an autobiography is usually a full book or a pretty long piece. Essays tend to be a bit shorter. Now, when you're writing a 5-paragraph essay, you might not feel like it's a short work about a single subject. But compared to other sort of like textbooks, autobiographies, even speeches, an essay can be pretty short. Essays can get pretty big. They can get up to 20 or 30 pages if you're going to college and trying to become a doctor. But compared to a book, that's not that many pages. Many books have at least 100 pages. So an essay, that's why we call an essay a short work about one single subject. Speeches. Okay, so a speech is simply a spoken presentation of the speaker's ideas or their beliefs. Go ahead and write that down in your study guide. Now all of these, I'm going to go back for a little bit. All 3 of these, autobiographies, essays, and speeches, are just a way to present information. They're just different final products that nonfiction can take the form of. Let's say you wanted to tell a story about how you learned to ride a bike, maybe. Then you could tell that story with an autobiography, a whole book about that life experience. You could tell that story with a personal essay, just a few pages about that part of your life. Or you could tell that story with a speech, which would involve talking to people in person. Now, to focus a little bit more on speeches, let's go forward. A speech is something spoken aloud, but it can be written down. The difference between speeches, essays, and autobiographies is that a speech is something that always is told to an audience. So even if you look at a speech that's written down, it'll probably have things in it that suggest that it's meant to be spoken aloud. Like maybe it'll have little notes about how you need to pause after you say something, or it will have questions for the audience, stuff like that. But the main thing to remember is this sentence right here. Okay. If you came across this book and it was entitled Mr. Simink's Whole Darn Life in a Book by Mr. Simink, what form of nonfiction would this be? Is it an autobiography? Is it an essay? Or is it a speech? Go ahead and write that answer in your study guide. Okay, Now let's move on to our last thing in this review, point of view, or otherwise known as POV. Okay, point of view. When we think about point of view, oftentimes we think about things like first person or third person, or the elusive second person perspective in a fictional story. But when we talk about it in relation to nonfiction things, then we are thinking that in this case, the point of view is another word for opinion. So if someone says, "What do you think that author's point of view is?" it's like they're asking you what you think their opinion is. Go ahead and write this down in your review guide, study guide. Okay, we can figure out an author's point of view on a topic by reading their work. Of course, this is how you get any information on what the author is trying to do. But a lot of times, well, most times, whenever an author is writing a piece of nonfiction, they're trying to share their opinion, their point of view with the reader. All right, let's look at an example. So this made up couple of sentences says, "No matter how you feel about it, you cannot deny that music is a language everyone can understand. It connects us even when we are broken apart." So ask yourself this: what does the author think about music? Or in other words, what is the author's point of view on music? Well, we can tell that from this last sentence, when it says it connects us even when we're broken apart, it views music as something that's good. You know, connection for people who are broken apart, that's sort of, that's like healing. That's something that we see as good. If the author is describing something in a way that we often see as good, then we can guess that the author probably has the point of view that music is a good connector, or music is good. You know, even that basic is an okay thing to say for what the point of view is. If we look at this example, I took one look at the looming, teetering boat in the dark, black water and decided that ocean life was not for me. What I'd like you to do here is ask yourself, what is the author's point of view or opinion on sailing based on what you read here? Take a look at these words. How do they describe the boat? How do they describe the water? Is it good or bad or medium? That'll help you figure out what their opinion is. Go ahead and write that in your study guide. Okay, finally, we have, I believe, reached the end. The reviews are complete. Good job, everybody. So, what I need you to do now is this. Look through your study guide. Make sure it's all filled out. If you missed a little bit, you can go back and watch videos from the other day. You'll be able to use this study guide on your quiz. Remember that. If you have any questions about any of these things I asked you, please let me know. You can email me, you can leave a private comment on any of these assignments, but remember, this study guide is something you're going to be able to use and to look at and to sort of copy off of on your when you take your quiz, and the quiz is going to be written very similarly to how the study guide is written. So let me know if you have any questions that I can answer. Thanks for joining me today, and I'll talk to you next week. Bye.